On December 18, 1879, Joseph Stalin was born. Joseph was a frail child. A few years later, he was injured in a carriage accident, which left his left arm slightly deformed. The other village children treated him cruelly, instilling in him a sense of inferiority. Because of this, Joseph began a quest for greatness and respect. He also developed a cruel streak for those who crossed him. Joseph's mother, a devout Russian Orthodox Christian, wanted him to become a priest. In 1888, she managed to enroll him in school in Gori. Joseph did well in school. A year later, Joseph came in contact with a secret organization that supported Georgian independence from Russia. Some of the members were socialists who introduced him to the writings of Karl Marx and Vladimir Lenin. Joseph joined the group in 1898. Though he excelled in seminary school, Joseph left in 1899. In 1901, he joined the Social Democratic Labor Party and worked full-time for the revolutionary movement. In 1902, he was arrested for coordinating a labor strike and exiled to Siberia. The first of his many arrests and exiles in the fleeting years to come in the Russian Revolution. It was during that time that Joseph adopted the name Stalin, meaning steel in Russian. Joseph Stalin excelled in the mundane operations of organizing strikes, calling meetings, and publishing leaflets. And after escaping from exile, he was marked by the Tsar's secret police. February 1917, the Russian Revolution began. In April 1917, Bolsheviks leader Vladimir Lenin denounced the provisional government, arguing that the people should rise up and take control by seizing land from the rich and factories from the industrialists. By October, the revolution was complete, and the Bolsheviks were in control. The Soviet government went through a violent period after the Russian Revolution as various individuals vied for position and control. In 1922, Stalin was appointed to the newly created office of General Secretary of the Communist Party. Though not a significant post at the time, it gave Stalin control over all the party member appointments, which allowed him to build his base. He made shrewd appointments and consolidated his power so that eventually nearly all members of the Central Command owed their position to him. By the time anyone realized what he had done, it was too late. Even Lenin, who was gravely ill, was helpless to regain control from Stalin. After Lenin's death in 1924, Stalin set out to destroy the old party leadership and take total control. At first, he had people removed from power through bureaucratic shuffling and denunciations. Many were exiled abroad to Europe and the Americas, including presumed Lenin successor Leon Trotsky. The paranoia soon set in, and Stalin conducted a vast reign of terror, having people arrested in the night and put before a spectacular show of trials. Potential rivals were accused of aligning with capitalist nations convicted of being enemies of the people and were soon executed. The purges eventually extended beyond the party elite to local officials suspected of counter-revolutionary activities. These people were soon sent with many other Russians to work in forced labor camps. Stalin believed that collectivism would accelerate food production, but the peasants resented losing their land and working for the state. Millions were killed in forced labor camps or starved during the famine. Any resistance was met with swift and lethal response. Millions of people were exiled to labor camps or the Gulag, or were executed. As war clouds rose over Europe in 1939, Stalin made a seemingly brilliant move, signing a non-aggression pact with Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany. Stalin was convinced of Hitler's integrity and ignored warnings from his military commanders that Germany was mobilizing armies on its eastern front. When the Nazi blitzkrieg struck in June 1941, The Soviet army was completely unprepared and suffered massive losses. Stalin was so distraught at Hitler's treachery that he hid in his office for several days. Stalin had been suspicious of the West since the inception of the Soviet Union. Ever since the Soviet Union had entered the war, Stalin had demanded the Allies open an eastern front against Germany. Both British Prime Minister Winston Churchill and American President FDR argued that such an action would result in heavy casualties. This only deepened Stalin's suspicion of the West, as millions of Russians died. Convinced of the Allies' hostility toward the Soviet Union, Stalin became obsessed with the threat of an invasion from the West. He soon established many threats against them, and when the Western powers intercepted these actions as proof of Stalin's desire to place Europe under communist control, thus formed the North Atlantic Treaty Organization to counter Soviet influence. In 1948, Stalin ordered an economic blockade of German city of Berlin in hopes of gaining full control of the city. The Allies mounted a massive airlift supplying the city and eventually forcing Stalin to back down. Though his popularity from his successes during World War II was strong, Stalin's health began to deteriorate. In the early 1950s, after an assassination plot was uncovered, he ordered the head of the secret police to investigate a new purge of the Communist Party. But before it could be executed, however, Stalin died on March 5th, 1953. He left a legacy of death and terror as he turned a backward Russia into a world superpower.